I've always been obsessed with being number one. Since I was a kid, nothing felt better than the worshipping gazes of my peers. I lived for that high of being the class genius. But in high school, I hit a wall and became the eternal number two. Then the guy in first place and the girl in third started dating. After a test, I overheard some classmates laughing at me. Why is Rory always stuck in the middle of those two? Like a pathetic third wheel? Ha ha ha. Passing an empty classroom, I heard the top-ranked guy tutoring his girlfriend. Baby, if you just score a few more points, next time, our names will be right next to each other on the leaderboard. I snapped. You want your names to be together? Fine. I'll take first place and make it happen. I've been an overachiever since I was in diapers. From the moment I became the first kid to master multiplication and earned the teacher's praise, my path was set. My vanity only grew as I got older. Before high school, I had a monopoly on the top spot. When people looked at me like I was some kind of academic god, the thrill was better than any drug. My happiness was shallow, and I loved it. I even graduated middle school with the highest score in the city. But then I met Cade. Throughout my first 2 years of high school, I didn't take first place. A single time. Not once. For someone who loves to show off as much as I do, being pinned at number 2 was a slow death. My teachers would try to comfort me. Rory, you're already amazing. You just had a bit of bad luck. Just be more careful next time. But behind my back, I heard them whispering about him. That kid. His brain is just built differently. His logic is so mature. Heard. He used to be in national math competitions. When classmates came to me for help, they always managed to stab me in the heart with their compliments. Rory staying at number 2 consistently is still legendary. The only one who can even touch Kate's shadow. The shadow. I keep a polite smile on my face, acting like I didn't care. Well, he's just better. What can you do? Inside, I was screaming. As soon as they left, my best friend, Cassie, leaned in with a look of pure mischief. Rory, I've got some tea for you. I kept my eyes on my workbook, but my ears were wide open. Kate is dating someone. Why should I care? Guess who? I finally looked up. Who? Leah. Cassie whispered. Who is that? Cassie rolled her eyes at me. My God, Rory, if someone ranks lower than you, they don't even exist in your world, do they? She's the girl who's always right behind you. And Kate in the monthly rankings. Through Cassie's gossip, I learned more about my rival's secret romance. Kate and Leah were in the neighboring class. Leah used to be ranked in the top 20, but her grades had skyrocketed this semester. Improving by 200 ranks is easy, but moving from the top 20 to the top 3 is another beast entirely. I heard they spend every break doing practice problems together. The toppest student in the state is her personal tutor. No wonder she's improving so fast. Cassie sighed. I finally remembered who Leah was. I actually did pay attention to the rankings. I just didn't care about names then. She was cute, long, dark hair, round eyes and thick lashes. Don't you have any thoughts on this? Cassie nudged me. The teachers definitely know. But since it's Cade, they're just turning a blind eye. This school had a strict no dating policy. But when the number 1 and number 3 students date just to study together, what can the principal say? Me. Why would I have thoughts? I smiled sweetly. Go ahead. Date all you want. I hope you both get distracted and fail. I thought viciously. The final rankings for the semester were posted on the bulletin board. I stood at the back of the crowd, but I could see my name clearly. Number 2 again. I was so mad. I felt like I could eat 3. It's a pasta for dinner out of spite. Before I could walk away, I heard some guys joking around. Why is Rory always stuck in the middle of those two? Like a pathetic third wheel. Haha. Seriously. Those two are like a wall. But I bet Leah will overtake Rory next time. She's only 6 points behind. It didn't stop there. After school, I realized I'd forgotten my keys and went back to get them. I passed the neighboring classroom and saw Kate and Leah alone inside. They were sitting by the window. Kate's voice drifted out softly. Baby, if you just score a few more points, next time, our names will be right next to each other on the leaderboard. Being the eternal number 2 was already miserable. But now nobody wanted me to take Kate down. Instead, everyone was rooting for Leah to kick me out of second place. I almost laughed from the pure rage. You two want your names to be together. I'll get first place and make your dream come true at dinner. My parents were used to me being second. Second place is incredible, Rory. Your mom and I never got grades like that. Don't push yourself too hard. That wasn't going to happen. I needed that top spot. But with my current scores, a regular tutor wouldn't cut it. Suddenly, I heard a car pulling into the driveway next door. Oh, Jace is back for summer break. My mom mentioned. Maybe I should ask him for his old study materials for you. Jace was 2 years older than me when he was a senior. He was a literal legend, who got a full ride to an Ivy League school for math. There were banners in the neighborhood celebrating him back then. Before I could answer, my dad chimed in. Jace was a competition kid. His stuff might be too advanced for our girl. That's when it hit me. I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over my chair. What's gotten into you? My mom asked. Startled, I sat back down and shoved the rest of my food into my mouth. I'm going to borrow some books from Jace, I said, muffled by the food. I ran next door. The gate was open, so I waved to his parents in the living room and bolted upstairs. Jace was sitting on his sofa in a white tee and jeans, scrolling through his phone. The dim lighting caught the sharp line of his jaw, and his perfect profile. To be honest, I didn't like Jace ever since we were kids. I knew he was just like me, a total poser. One poser never likes another who is better at it than they are. And Jace was definitely better at it. He looked up and arched an eyebrow. Well, if it isn't little Rory. Before he could finish, I dropped to my knees right in front of him. He jumped off the couch like he'd seen a ghost. Rory, what the hell are you doing? I looked at him with dead seriousness. Jace, I heard you're home for the summer. I want to hire you as my tutor. He grabbed my arms to pull me up. Just ask, why are you kneeling? If my parents see this, they'll think I bullied you. It's a gesture of sincerity, I said, blinking innocently. A single knee would be weird. Double knees show I'm desperate. He stared at me speechless. I'll pay you the market rate for 2 months. Can I have you for the summer? Don't say it like that. It sounds suggestive. Oh, sorry. He held me by the shoulders and looked me up and down. I thought your grades were great. Why do you need me? I hesitated, but but then I told him the truth. So you're telling me, Jay said, looking impressed, that you've been stuck in Icon Place for 2 years straight. He gave me a thumbs up. Honestly, that's kind of iconic. Was he mocking me? I knew that back in the day, Jace was unbeatable. He never missed a point. So you want the secret to being number one? My ears felt hot, but I nodded. Posers understand. Posers. Jace let out a low laugh. If you're willing to beg me like this, you must really want it. I hated asking for favors, but Jace didn't need the money. If I didn't beg, why would he waste his summer on me? And if I stayed in second place for 1 more month, I was going to explode. Will you do it? I asked, looking up at him. He had that lazy, effortless smirk on his face, the same one he had when he got into his Ivy League school, without even trying. I was so jealous. Bring me your most recent exam papers tomorrow, Jay said. I'll see if you're even teachable. That was a yes. Posers always like to leave a little room for mystery. The next day, I brought him my last 3 sets of finals. He flipped through my mistakes and his first comment was, your handwriting is nice. Of course it was. I'd spent years practicing calligraphy, just so I could act modest when people complimented my essays. It's okay, I guess I'd say, while screaming with joy inside. You're barely losing points on the basics. Jace noted. You're careful and your logic is solid. The problem is the bonus questions and the advanced calculus stuff. You don't know the shortcuts. He paused, but I knew what he was thinking. I didn't know them, but Kate did. That was the gap. Also, you need to stop ignoring your humanities. I need 5 to 8 more points in English and literature to lock it down. I looked at him gloomily. Did he think I didn't know that getting those extra points in English, when I was already near the top, was like trying to squeeze blood from a stone? Jay saw my expression and laughed. What's with the face? You hired me to raise your score. Are you doubting my abilities? He was so arrogant. I wish I could pull off that level of confidence. Jace's parents were thrilled he was tutoring me, mostly because it meant he'd stop playing video games all day. Wait, he played video games all day and was still a genius? I wanted to cry. Since my school year hadn't officially ended yet, I only went to his house on weekends. During the week, I take photos of my mistakes and text them to him. Usually I'd figure out the answer before he replied, just to save face. On Saturday, Jace asked, did you figure out the trig problem? I nodded, yeah, I got it. He pulled out a notebook with a few handwritten problems. Try these. His handwriting was elegant and powerful. I remembered then that my mom had sent me to the same calligraphy class his parents recommended years ago. The problems on the page were new to me. The first 2 were easy enough. The third one made me pause. I scratched out several lines of logic before finally getting the result. The last one took me 2 pages of scratch paper. Every path I took led to a dead end. Finally put my pen down and looked at him. I'm stuck. He leaned back smirking. It's okay. That's a college-level competition problem. It's normal. You can't do it. That was the most blatant bait I'd ever heard. I stared at the problem for another 10 minutes, trying to burn a hole through the paper. Jace chuckled. All right. Let your teacher show off a little. Okay. He took the pen, his long fingers circling 2 key points in the equation. He leaned in close to explain. His voice was right by my ear. As he watched my face, everything that had been blurry suddenly became crystal clear. You probably won't see this on a high school test, but it trains your brain to think in 3 dimensions. He moved back to the previous problem I'd solve. I got that one right, I said, wondering why he was wasting time. Jay smiled. If you and another student both get the hardest question right, how do you prove you're better? I thought for a second by having a cleaner, more efficient solution. And I was confused. Think if the other person knows 1 way to solve it and you know 3, you win. If the other person knows 1 way to solve it and you know 3, you win. Jace said, tapping the end of his pen against my temple. Because when the test throws a curveball that invalidates the standard formula, the other guy panics. You don't. You just switch tracks. That's what Kate is doing. He's not smarter than you, Rory. He just has a bigger toolkit. I stared at the paper, letting his words sink in. He wasn't giving me inspirational garbage about trying my best. He was giving me the cold, hard mechanics of warfare. Teach me the other tracks, I said, my voice dead serious. Jace's smirk widened into a genuine, dangerous smile. Welcome to hell, little Rory. And hell it was. For the next 2 months, my summer ceased to exist. While Cassie was posting Instagram stories from beach houses and pool parties, my skin took on the pale, fluorescent hue of a basement dweller. Jace was a brutal taskmaster. He didn't just give me harder math problems. He completely dismantled the way I studied. You're relying on brute force memorization for literature and history, he told me one sweaty Tuesday afternoon in his air-conditioned living room. He tossed my essay draft onto the coffee table with a look of utter disdain. This is robotic. You're feeding the teacher exactly what they want to hear, but it lacks soul. To get a perfect score, you have to manipulate the grader into thinking you're a profound, tortured intellectual. I am a tortured intellectual, I argued, gesturing to the dark circles under my eyes. No, you're a vain teenager who wants a shiny gold star, Jay shot back without missing a beat. Which is fine. I was the exact same way. But you have to fake the depth. Read this. He dropped a worn copy of Dostoevsky onto my lap. Stop reading summary guides. Understand the actual philosophy, then drop a casual, perfectly placed existential reference in your AP Lit essays. The teachers will eat it up. It was infuriating how right he was. Jay saw right through my perfect student facade because he possessed the exact same sickness. We were both posers, addicted to the applause, but he had perfected the art of making the impossible look effortless. Late one night in August, a week before senior year started, I hit a breaking point. I was stuck on a physics concept regarding magnetic fields, staring at my notebook until the numbers blurred into a gray smudge. I dropped my head onto the table with a loud thud. I can't do it, I mumbled into the wood. Kate can have it. I'll just be second. It's fine. Second is fine. I heard the scrape of a chair. Suddenly, Jace was standing behind me. He didn't say anything comforting. Instead, he pulled up a video on his phone and set it on the table near my ear. It was a recording I had completely forgotten about. It was the sound of my own voice from the day I begged him to tutor me, saying, I want to get first place and make their dream come true. I'll put them right next to each other. I snapped my head up, glaring at him. You recorded me? I needed insurance in case you tried to quit, Jace said, leaning against the edge of the desk, crossing his arms. He was wearing a gray Harvard t-shirt, looking annoyingly well-rested. Are you really going to let Leah overtake you? I heard she's been doing 3 hours of prep a day with Golden Boy Cade. Imagine it, Rory. First place Cade. Second place Leah. Third place you. My blood went cold. The exhaustion vanished, instantly replaced by a toxic, fiery adrenaline. I grabbed my pencil so hard my knuckles turned white. Show me the magnetic field shortcut again, I snarled. Jace laughed a low, satisfied sound. Good girl. Now pay attention. September arrived. The air turned crisp, and the halls of Crestwood High were buzzing with the usual back-to-school energy. I walked in on Monday morning with perfectly styled hair, a crisp uniform, and my signature polite, unbothered smile. Cassie hooked her arm through mine by the lockers. Oh my god, did you see Leah? She practically has a glow-up, and she and Cade are still going strong. They spent the whole summer studying at the library. Word on the street is Cade promised her a weekend trip if she breaks the top 2. The top 2. I repeated, keeping my voice light and amused. How ambitious of her. I know, right? Cassie sighed. But honestly, Rory, don't be mad, but she's looking really sharp. Just, watch your back. Always, I said sweetly. First period, AP Calculus. The teacher, Mr. Harrison, decided to welcome us back with a brutal pop quiz to dust off the cobwebs. There were 5 questions. The first 4 were standard. The 5th was a monster, a multi-layered integration problem that looked like it had crawled out of a university textbook. I looked at it. I recognized the structure immediately. It was the exact type of 3D logic trap Jace had used to humiliate me on my first day of tutoring. I didn't panic. I didn't even hesitate. I smiled, clicked my pen, and bypassed the standard formula entirely. I used the theorem Jace had drilled into my skull. 3 lines of elegant, brutal logic. Done. I stood up and walked to the front of the room, dropping my paper on Mr. Harrison's desk. The entire class went dead silent. Only 12 minutes had passed. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Cade. He was sitting 2 rows over, his pencil frozen midair, staring at me with a bewildered expression. He hadn't even started the 5th question yet. I gave him a tiny polite nod, then walked out of the room to go to the bathroom. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I got him. I finally made him sweat. 2 days later, the quiz grades were handed back. I got a 100. Cade got a 95. He had solved the final problem, but he had taken the long route and made a minor arithmetic error on the final step because he was rushing. It was just a quiz. It didn't affect the overall rankings much, but it was the first time in 2 years that Cade had looked at my paper instead of his own. By mid-October, the psychological warfare was in full swing. Jace had gone back to the East Coast for college, but we FaceTimed 3 times a week. Ostensibly, it was to review my tests, but mostly it was him analyzing my war campaign like a general safely in a bunker. He's overcompensating, Jace said through the screen, squinting at a photo of Cade's latest physics exam that I had sneakily taken a picture of. Look at this. Proof. It's too long. He's second-guessing himself because you beat him on the last 2 quizzes. He's trying to be overly thorough, which is eating up his time. So I keep playing fast and loose? I asked, twirling a pen. You play fast and accurate, Jace corrected. Let him drown in his own paranoia. How's the girlfriend? I grinned. Struggling. Cade is so stressed about me breathing down his neck that he's spending less time tutoring her. Leah dropped to 5th in the last mini-ranking. I heard them arguing in the stairwell yesterday. Jace chuckled, resting his chin on his hand. Through the grainy webcam he looked striking. The harsh dorm lighting cast shadows over his cheekbones. You are ruthless, Rory. Remind me never to cross you. Just don't drop to number 2 and you won't have to worry, I teased. For a second, the sarcastic banter faded. Jace looked at me, his dark eyes intensely focused. I wouldn't care if you beat me, Rory. It'd be the only time losing felt earned. My breath hitched. I quickly looked down at my notes, my face flushing hot. Shut up, poser. Help me with this AP Chem module. The first major semester exam arrived in November. This was the big one. The one that determined the bulletin board rankings for the winter. I walked into the exam hall feeling like a loaded weapon. I didn't just know the material. I understood the architecture of the tests. I knew which questions were meant to distract me, which were meant to drain my time, and which were the true gatekeepers of the perfect score. For 3 days, I wrote until my hand cramped. I poured Dostoevsky-level angst into my literature essays. I sliced through calculus like a surgeon. I didn't look at Cade once. I didn't need to. On Friday, the results were posted in the main hall. The crowd of students was thick, buzzing with whispers. I stood at the back, my stomach churning with a nauseating mix of dread and anticipation. Cassie pushed her way through the mob, her eyes wide as she ran back to me. Rory, she gasped, grabbing my shoulders. Rory, look. I took a deep breath, parted the crowd with my elbows, and stood before the glass case. 1. Rory Chen 99.2%. 2. Cade Mitchell 97.5%. 3. Leah Davis 94.1%. I stared at it. The numbers burned into my retinas. I had done it. I wasn't just in first place. I had crushed him by nearly 2 full percentage points. And just as I had promised the universe and Jace, I had successfully reunited the happy couple. They were right next to each other, second and third. A slow, euphoric warmth spread through my chest. It was the high I had been craving for 2 years, but magnified by 1,000. Holy crap, a guy muttered beside me. The queen is back. I arranged my face into a mask of humble surprise. Oh wow. I breathed softly, pressing a hand to my chest. I really thought I messed up the history essay. Cade is usually so much better at this. I turned and there he was. Cade was standing at the edge of the crowd, staring at the board. His jaw was tight, his eyes slightly glazed. Leah was standing next to him, looking nervously between the board and her boyfriend. Hey Cade, I said, my voice dripping with honey. Looks like we swapped this time. You'll definitely get me back next month though. He looked at me. For the first time, the effortless, relaxed aura he always carried was completely gone. Yeah, he said, his voice clipped. Good job, Rory. He turned and walked away. Leah called his name, trailing after him like a lost puppy. I watched them go, the petty, vindictive part of my soul doing a victory lap. I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to Jace. Wish granted. His reply came seconds later. Knew you had it in you, number one. Call me tonight. Being number one again was everything I had dreamed of, but the fallout was messier than I anticipated. By December, the dynamic of the school had shifted. Teachers were looking at me with renewed awe. Underclassmen whispered when I walked by. I was back on my throne, but Cade was spiraling. The effortless genius had been forced to realize he wasn't invincible. He started staying late in the library. He stopped hanging out with his friends. And most notably, he stopped sitting with Leah at lunch. One afternoon, I was in the empty classroom copying down some notes from the blackboard when I heard a sniffle. I turned around to see Leah standing in the doorway. Her eyes were red. I paused. I didn't hate Leah. I barely knew her. She was just collateral damage. In my war with Cade. You got what you wanted, Leah said, her voice shaking. I put my chalk down, wiping my hands on a tissue. I don't know what you mean. Cade, she said bitterly. He broke up with me yesterday. I genuinely blinked in surprise. What? Why? Because he said he needs to focus. She laughed, a harsh, watery sound. He said he can't afford distractions anymore. Because of you. He's obsessed with beating you, Rory. You ruined everything. She turned and ran down the hallway before I could say a word. I stood there in the quiet classroom. I should have felt triumphant. The girl who had threatened to overtake me was crying, and the guy who had blocked my path for 2 years was having a mental breakdown. This was total victory. But as I looked down at my hands, I felt a strange, hollow sensation in my stomach. That night, I sat on the floor of my bedroom, surrounded by textbooks, feeling entirely unmotivated. I opened FaceTime and called Jace. When his face popped up on the screen, he was in the library, wearing a hoodie, looking exhausted but happy to see me. Hey champion, what's the emergency? You look like someone died. I pulled my knees to my chest. Cade and Leah broke up. Jace raised an eyebrow. And, did you want to date him or something? You know, I scowled. It's just she blamed me. Said Cade is obsessed with beating me now. And the weird thing is, I don't even care. You don't care that they broke up? I don't care about beating him anymore, I admitted, speaking the terrifying truth out loud for the first time. I got first place. The revenge was sweet. But now, looking at the textbooks, thinking about the next exam, Cade isn't the motivation anymore. Jace went quiet. He leaned back in his chair, studying me through the camera. So what's the motivation? I looked at the open calculus book on my floor. I looked at the margins filled with my own scribbled notes, finding 4th and 5th ways to solve the equations. The math, I said softly. The logic. It's actually beautiful. When I figure out a puzzle that's supposed to be impossible, I don't think about Cade. I just feel alive. I think I actually just love the work, Jace. A slow, incredibly tender smile broke across Jace's face. It wasn't his usual arrogant smirk. It was a look of pure, unadulterated pride. Congratulations, Rory, he said quietly. You've officially graduated. From what? From being a poser. He shifted closer to the screen. You started this because you wanted people to look at you. You wanted the applause. But the applause is cheap. It fades. The only thing that lasts is the obsession with the craft itself. Cade was just a ghost you were chasing. Now you're running for yourself. My heart did a strange, violent flip in my chest. Looking at Jace thousands of miles away, I realized something else. I wasn't just obsessed with the work. I was deeply, undeniably in love with the guy who had shown me how to see it. Spring semester arrived and the dynamic between Cade and me changed entirely. He was frantic. On the February exams, I beat him by 3 points. On the March exams, I beat him by 4. He was studying himself into the ground, pulling all-nighters, looking gaunt and manic. Meanwhile, I was sleeping 8 hours a night. I had stopped doing practice problems just to memorize them. Instead, I spent my free time reading university-level physics papers Jace sent me. High school tests had become trivial, like playing checkers when I had already learned chess. In April, the State Mathematics Olympiad was announced. It was Cade's domain. He had placed second in the state the previous year, and was the heavy favorite to win gold this year. I marched into the principal's office and signed up. When Cade saw my name on the roster, he cornered me in the hallway. Why are you doing this? He demanded, his voice tight. You don't even care about competition math. You're just doing this to spite me. I leaned against the lockers, looking at him calmly. I felt a brief flash of pity. He used to look so tall to me. Now he just looked like a stressed out kid. I'm not doing this for you, Cade, I said honestly. I'm doing it because the problems look fun, and I want to see if I can solve them. He sneered, a desperate, ugly look. You can't. School tests are one thing. This is theoretical. You can't just memorize your way out of it. You're out of your depth, Rory. We'll see, I said, walking away. The weekend of the Olympiad, the school rented a bus to take the competitors to the state capitol. I sat by the window, headphones on, listening to a playlist Jace had made me. We hadn't talked in 3 days. He had his own finals at Yale, and I didn't want to distract him. I walked into the massive university hall where the competition was being held. Hundreds of the smartest kids in the state were gathered, whispering in nervous clumps. Cade was across the room, flanked by his usual sycophants, ignoring me. I found my assigned desk, sat down, and arranged my pencils. Excuse me, is this seat taken? I froze. That voice. I whipped my head around. Standing in the aisle, wearing a leather jacket over a Plain white tee, looking like he had just stepped off a runway instead of a red-eye flight, was Jace. My jaw dropped. What are you doing here? Oh, I yelled, looking around to see if the proctors were watching. You have finals. Finish them early, Jace said casually, leaning against the empty desk next to mine. Figured I couldn't let my star pupil face the final boss without her. Coach. My chest felt like it was going to burst. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to punch him. You flew across the country for a high school math competition? I flew across the country for you, idiot, he corrected, his voice dropping an octave. He reached out, his knuckles lightly brushing my cheek. The casual contact sent an electric shock straight down my spine. Don't think about Cade. Don't think about the state ranking. Just look at the paper, find the elegant path and destroy it. I will, I breathed. The proctor called for all non-competitors to leave. Jace gave me one last lingering look, a smirk playing on his lips. I'll be waiting outside. Make me proud. Número uno. The timer started. I flipped the booklet open. Cade was right about one thing. It was brutal. The first half was manageable, but the final 3 problems were absolute monsters. They required leaps of logic that standard curriculums didn't even touch. I could hear the frantic scratching of pencils, the heavy sighs, the sound of panicked erasing around me. I glanced over at Cade. He was pale, sweating, aggressively erasing a massive block of equations. He had taken the wrong track and was trapped. I looked back at my paper. The final problem was a labyrinth of calculus and topology. I closed my eyes. I pictured Jace sitting next to me in the summer heat, his voice murmuring in my ear. If you and another student both get the hardest question right, how do you prove you're better? By having a cleaner, more efficient solution. I opened my eyes. The matrix of numbers shifted in my brain, aligning perfectly. I didn't take the standard route. I didn't even take the secondary route. I took the third path, the shortcut, the elegant, three-dimensional logic that only someone who truly loved the math could see. I wrote for 20 minutes in total flow state. When I finished the final proof, I set my pencil down. I was the first one done. I stood up, handed my booklet to the stunned proctor, and walked out of the hall. I didn't look at Cade. I didn't need to. Jace was leaning against a brick wall in the courtyard, scrolling on his phone. When he heard the doors open, he looked up. Already? He asked, pushing himself off the wall. I took the third path, I said, walking toward him, my heart hammering against my ribs. Jace's eyes darkened with approval. He met me halfway across the courtyard. Did you? Yeah. I stopped right in front of him, looking up into his dark eyes. The adrenaline of the test was fading, replaced by a completely different kind of rush. I think I got a perfect score. I don't doubt it, Jace murmured. He was standing so close I could smell his cologne, something crisp and cedar-like. So what's the new goal, Rory? You conquered the school. You conquered the state. What's left? You, I said. The word slipped out before my brain could filter it. Jace froze. For a second, the arrogant, unflappable genius looked genuinely caught off guard. Then a slow, breathtaking smile spread across his face. I've been waiting 2 years for you to figure that out, he said softly. He cupped my face with both hands and kissed me. It wasn't a tentative high school kiss. It was deep, confident, and entirely overwhelming. My hands immediately found the lapels of his jacket, pulling him closer, anchoring myself to him as the world spun. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. Jace rested his forehead against mine, laughing softly. You know, he whispered, dating your tutor is a massive cliché. I'm not dating my tutor, I fired back, grinning. I'm dating my equal. The award ceremony was held 2 weeks later. When they announced the results for the State Mathematics Olympiad, the auditorium was packed. In third place, Cade Mitchell. There was polite applause. Cade walked up to the stage, looking utterly defeated. He accepted the bronze medal with a stiff nod. And with the highest score recorded in the last decade, our first place gold medalist, Rory Chun. The room erupted. Cassie was screaming her lungs out in the second row. My parents were crying. I walked up the stairs, my heels clicking confidently against the stage. I took the gold medal, shaking the superintendent's hand with my practiced, polite smile. I glanced to my right. Cade was looking at me, his eyes full of complex bitter resignation. The war was officially over. I hadn't just beaten him, I had broken his spirit. I didn't gloat. I just gave him a small, polite nod, the exact same one I used to give him when he was number 1. Then I looked out into the back of the auditorium. Leaning against the double doors, arms crossed, wearing that infuriatingly perfect smirk, was Jace. I held up the gold medal, looking straight at him. I was Rory Chun. I was vain, I was arrogant, and I was unapologetically obsessed with being the best. But as I caught the way Jace looked at me, like I was the only equation in the world worth solving, I realized something profound. Being number 1 was incredible, but finding someone who made you forget about the rankings entirely, that was legendary.